I wouldn't disagree with you about the fact that people are interested in tasks. I think the problem for if you're writing material that's general is that you get not a conflict, a tension, should we call it, between writing stuff for tasks, which is appropriate in some cases, and writing stuff which is more generic, but which is so that is more tool oriented. I mean, you see that with programming books, introductions to lots of skills, you know, that people make a decision they want to learn a skill and you can't know exactly what they want. I think that flows through into what you said about internationalization. I don't disagree with you about any of that either. What I thought was interesting is you said about writing in English and a restricted set, and that's true. I mean, that's, again, if you think about tech as a programming language, most programming languages are written in English. They have English keywords, and they are mainly documented in English. But particularly if you look beyond maths to full documents in LaTeX, you get into issues where you can't decouple the language you're writing in from the information you actually need to tell people. If I'm writing, I mean, to take an extreme example, if you're writing in Japanese, you're probably using PLaTeX or UpLaTeX rather than PDF LaTeX, and so there are completely different technical challenges to that, and you can't simply translate things. So that makes life more interesting for us. And on the documentation, I guess, again, I'd say I see what you mean about HTML, but as a package author in the LaTeX world, I want to show off what my typesetting does, and so that tends toward PDF. Depends how extreme you want to go. If you're writing the TICS manual, you definitely want it to be in PDF. Although there is an HTML version available, but it has a few flaws. So there are tensions there, I guess. I suppose you're trying to balance off what you're trying to do for new users with what the tool offers, I suppose. That's what I'd say. I don't know, I don't know if that's helpful.
That's very helpful.
Jonathan, this is Kelly, and just from our user perspective, where tech is not my #1 language, I think that there's just so much information out there in tidbits, but the web content of complex manuals is potentially there, but difficult as a new user to get into. And so if you don't have a professor telling you what book to read to learn it, then your ability to find complex, or not complex, but comprehensive information is difficult. Like, it's really easy for me to Google one thing and find a specific answer, but to know what would be a best practice, it becomes hard to like filter through the sea of information that I encounter to know what I should do. So if there was some overarching place where you could just get like even links to where you should go to find those best practices, I think that would be helpful. And if that information is already in existence, it's potentially not that well advertised because I am not able to find it at the moment.
I'd like to respond to that question, not question, those comments, which is marketplace. It's a somewhat abused term, but in London, if you want to get a gentleman's suit, you go to Savile Row. That's where all the good tailors are. And if you're feeling a bit unwell, then you go to Harley Street, which is where the doctors practice. And the origin of that is very old, which is that the tailors formed a community of practice, and they all practiced at the same place. And so there became one place where you went for information, and similarly for Harley Street. And the other aspects of marketplace is that actually in Greek democracy, the agora was, so to speak, the square. And that was both the marketplace and the place at which the democratic gatherings took place. So what Kelly, in a certain sense, is saying is a symptom, I regard, of the weakness of the community of practice. The weakness of our community of practice means there's no clear place to go for this information. One sign of that is that the Journal of the Tech Users Group no longer has the importance that it had before. So I remember some time ago when I started reading Tugboat, the journal, there was, I think it was by Bart's Childs, a sort of syllabus of tech and sort of description of the various stages of tech. And that provided shared values, shared information, shared ways of doing things. Some parts of community of practice is not, this is better than the other, but it's best that everybody does it the same way, at least in the same country. So in my country, we always drive on the left, and in your country, we always drive on the right, and neither is better than the other. But if you're in England, then you should drive on the left, and if you're in the United States, you should drive on the right. And some of the disputes about formatting source code and so forth is a question of just having a uniform way of doing it. It makes it easier. So I think that Kelly has got a point there, which is the whole thing can be a bit bewildering for beginners, and we can't solve that problem by everybody putting up their website and saying, listen to me, I'll tell you what's right. That will just continue the confusion. It's a question of people knowing each other and discussing these things. I'll stop at that point. I'm sure there's some other people that want to talk on this interesting point and other aspects of this as well.